Hi, everybody. It's Craig and Arun back with your week 4. Yeah, week 4 of college football. Where's the season gone already? But we had a great week last week. We continue to do so. We got every game scheduled for you that has a line. We'll have a free pick here from one of us. Don't forget, if you want to get on all of our best bets, we've got a free $60 for all new customers. It's very easy. DocSports.com/ICCT. That gets you a free $60. Tells everybody, hey, we like the show, and we're going to try out Craig and Arun's best plays over at the website. So they might be included in some of these picks we cover, but it doesn't have the rankings, units, and the final reason why we chose these exclusive. I see you usually have 5 or 6 every week in football, correct?
Yeah, I usually have 6 and went 5-1 last week, so pretty happy about it. And trying to get that elusive. I'd be happy with 5-1 this week, but trying to get that elusive 6-0.
So I usually have 7 to 9. Last week I went 5-2, nailed all 3, 2 6 units and a 7 unit last week. So make sure you go over there and use that ICCT.
What was your record last week?
Overall for the videos or for?
Well, overall for the videos, we went 15-1.
On NFL, we went 15-1.
But college, what was your premium?
5-2 between both. I lost 1 in both sports.
So we went 10-3 on our premium picks last week.
Yep.
Combined.
Is that right? I had 7, 5-2. Yeah, 5-1. That's right.
And you hit all your top plays.
Yeah, all 3 top plays, and I think I like 3 again this week as top plays. Another 5 or 6 that I'll finalize here this week. Also, if you're not a new customer and you can't try that free 60, that's a one-time deal. You can use a promo code to get 10% off. Use the promo code Cowboy10. That's Cowboy10's good, 10% off. The weekly football pass are $99, or get the full season pass to get you 10% off, and that's per capper. So make sure you check us both out. Okay, let's get right to it. I know what you're here for. It's the free picks, and let's kick us off on early noontime on Saturday, September 20th. SMU at TCU. TCU favored by 7. Total 64. What do you like here, IC?
Well, SMU comes in as a touchdown road dog on a total of 64, which could seem a little bit high. But yeah, so you get a 2-1 team here on the road against a 2-0 team. Couple points here. SMU played like dog poop against Missouri State. They won 28-10. They were 28.5-point chalk on the road. And, this was coming off the heels of losing to Baylor 45-48, and they did beat TMC 42-13. They have missed all 3 covers this year so far. TCU rolling in, TCU did not cover their minus 42 against Abilene Christian here. That was a game where, they were up 20-0, and they just kind of sat in on that line. So they come in not covering that game, but they did have that monster win against USC, winning 48-14. Head-to-head, SMU beat this team 66-42 last year, so bear that in mind. So TCU does come. That was a bad loss for TCU. So the TCU does come into revenge here. Rhett Lashley is a fantastic coach for SMU. He's in his 4th year. He's been an offensive coordinator, which is why he put up 60-plus points on this team last time. TCU is coached by Sonny Dykes. He's also offensive-minded as well. TCU returns 9 starters on offense and 9 starters on defense, and I'm kind of shocked that they're only a -7 favorite here. SMU returns some key pieces too, but I'm really sort of surprised at how much. I thought TCU would be favored by much more, and they're not. I think for this game, one way I want to lean SMU because SMU does not have a quality win. They did not beat Baylor. TCU, I guess, had a quality win of sorts against UNC. This is a tough game, but I think what will happen here, this game will probably go over because I think the over is a safer play here. You get SMU as a potential active dog. SMU only put up 28 points against Missouri State. I think they saved a lot in the tank for this game. Remember, the last time SMU was an active dog was against Baylor, and it went to 93 points. And then you have TCU. Last time these two teams met, it went to 108 points. TCU, I think, wants to blow this team out from losing last year. Give me the over. I'm not messing with the side. By the way, 78% are riding TCU. I can't take TCU for that, even though they have revenge. I got to take the over in this game. All right, Craig. We move on to North Texas against Army. North Texas is a 2-point favorite on the road. Bear in mind that North Texas is a perfect 3-0 to start the year. Winning that big game against Washington State, that was on my card. And then Army, of course, comes into this game, beating Kansas State as an outright 17-point dog. Army beat them 14-3 last year. Who do you like?
Yeah, I had that game. I had Army in that game. I didn't think they went out right, but it just shows you what happens when teams are looking past other teams. Anybody can lose. I also, in the video last week, I said I like North Texas in a blowout because Washington State and Oregon State, both of those Pac-12 remnants are terrible this year. So just so you know that going forward. I like Army here +2. They were off last week. I think that's a big edge. And North Texas, that was a big win, even though they were at home. That was an impressive win. So sometimes you're patting yourself on the back. And remember, Army lost to Tarleton State week 1. So, they're probably like, this Army team isn't as good. They switched quarterbacks against that Kansas State team. Look what happened. I think they win again here. I think it's a lower scoring game. I don't think there'll be a lot of possession, so I also think the under. But of those two, by far, I like Army better as the +2 favorite. Under.
Something else too. We mentioned this on the show that North Texas's head coach used to be the coordinator at Washington State, so he was ready for that game.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big win. Next game we have is Arkansas, Memphis. Arkansas, big favorite here. 7 on the road. I'm surprised. -7 total, 63.5. Good matchup here. I think either team of these can win, and those are the games I like to bet on.
Yeah, look, Arkansas with Sam Pittman, right, in his 6th year. Pittman's roots come out from the offensive line. He wants to dominate that offensive line. Arkansas's offensive coordinator is, of course, Bobby Petrino, who used to coach my Falcons. Of course, he fell on a motorcycle and damaged his face, and now he's just chilling life over in Arkansas. Memphis, of course, has Ryan Silverfield. He's in his 6th year now, too, as well. Arkansas returns 8 starters on defense. Memphis had a lot of turnover, but they're looking pretty good. So it's interesting, right? Because Arkansas comes into this game losing to Ole Miss 35-41 as a 4-point dog. They'd beaten Arkansas State and they'd beaten Alabama A&M as well. Memphis comes in having covered 6 straight dating back to last year. Big win against Troy on the road. Big win against Georgia State. Now they're playing at home. They are going to be rocking in Memphis. Absolutely rocking here. It is, this total sits at 63.5. I think I can't take Arkansas here. Memphis is going to be going berserk. But Arkansas also comes off a loss, so they could bounce back too. I sort of lean on Memphis in this game, but I don't want to go against Arkansas coming off of a loss. But then again, Arkansas gave up 41 points in their last game too. But I think Memphis could be very much of an active dog here. When Memphis has played, when you go back, so the question is, how does Ryan Silverfield do against elite type teams, right? Like when they faced FSU on the road, they beat them 20-12, right? So I lean on Memphis here, and it is scary to lean on Memphis with Arkansas coming off of a loss, but I have a slight lean on Memphis, and I have a slight lean on the over in this game too. But I understand that this defense could step up coming off of a loss in their last game too. But yeah, I have to. So, remember, Memphis lost to Missouri 2 years ago, 27-34. They beat Boise State 35-32. They have a tendency to get up for these type of games, and plus, if you go back and look at Arkansas' schedule too, I think they have, they have Notre Dame on deck as well. So it's a bad spot for a lot of reasons. I'm taking the touchdown here. Give me Memphis plus the 7.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on all the great content we have here at Doc Sports.
All right, Craig, Maryland on the road against Wisconsin. Maryland, a 9.5-point dog here. Wisconsin, 9.5-point favorite. Of course, Wisconsin lost to my Alabama Crimson Tide. Total of 43.5 here. Who do you like?
Coach Loxley's done a better job than people give him credit for in Maryland. It's not like Maryland is, even though it's a big Under Armour school because the founder of Under Armour, big supporter there, they don't have a ton of other, talent coming there. So usually they have a talent gap. It's pretty significant. But the one thing that bothers me about Wisconsin is, when Luke Fickell came in, he came in from my Cincinnati, so I know all about Luke Fickell. He came in and he kind of was like, oh, we're going to kind of have a different, not smash mouth football. Then this past year, he's like, oh, screw it. We're going back to smash mouth football. And if we're going to lose, we're going to do it Wisconsin style. I just don't think they're going to get more than 20 points. So if they don't get more than 20, how do you cover a line of 9.5 or 10? I'd wait till game time. Hopefully we get Maryland at +10, but I like Maryland plus the points. I think this is a touchdown type game. I think they can win 20-13. Easy coverage for us. Give me Maryland plus the points. Next game, pretty good game here in Ohio. I'm actually going to be in Cincinnati, and Miami of Ohio is only about 30-40 minutes from my house, my apartment there. UNLV's favored by 2.5 here. Total of 49. You think Miami of Ohio is a live underdog here?
Well, I was kind of surprised to see the line, to be honest with you, but I guess they'll get up for this game. A couple notes here. Obviously, UNLV is coached by Dan Mullen. Very offensive-minded coach. Miami, Ohio, coached by Chuck Martin. He's in his 12th year, by the way. UNLV only returned 2 starters from last year, but that hasn't affected them. They're 3-0 out of the gates. Miami of Ohio returned 0 offensive starters and 4 defensive starters. UNLV comes off that huge win against UCLA, 30-23 as a 1.5-point dog. They beat Sam Houston. They beat Idaho State. So after that failed cover against Idaho State, which I like the over in that game, they're 3-0. Miami of Ohio lost badly to Rutgers, 17-45. They lost to Wisconsin, 0-17. Obviously, the odds makers have faith in Miami of Ohio to step up here and probably do well. However, I think what kind of makes sense in this game, I'm probably going to back the over just because I feel like UNLV, I think Miami of Ohio is going to be an active dog. See, the question is, if Miami of Ohio does well, how will they do well? That's why the line is only +2. Right? How will they do well in this game? I think they could step up on defense after giving up 45 points in their last game, but I don't think so because they have so many new players, and UNLV comes into this game winning 30-23 the last game, and I think UNLV has a lot more in the tank. I'm going to take the over between UNLV and Miami of Ohio, but it is very scary that they're only a 2.5-point dog. So we're going to find out what an active underdog means for Miami of Ohio. Some teams are active underdogs, but they go to the under, like they play like a half court, sort of offense type thing. And some teams are active underdogs and the game goes over. So I like the over between UNLV and Miami of Ohio. Greg, Bowling Green is on the road against Louisville. Bowling Green is a 26.5-point dog on a total of 51.5. Obviously, Louisville is perfect this year. They're 2-0. And Bowling Green comes into this game coming off a nice win against Liberty. Who do you like?
Yeah, Louisville was off last week after that nice win against, I think, a pretty good JMU team. And I thought Liberty was going to be pretty good. I actually picked Liberty last week. It's we did really, really well with our free picks videos last week here. But I was wrong. Liberty Bowling Green had something for them. I think Coach Brown and company's really talented as far as like individual pieces. They just haven't put it all together yet. So it's a little scary. You say that 26.5. I wish it was 28. But I'm going to take Bowling Green here. I know Louisville's off a bye, so that's a little scary. And like I said, I think they'll continue to get better as Louisville team as the season goes on. But I think Eddie George and company has something for them. I'm going to take another underdog here, plus 26.5 with Bowling Green. One of the better games of the week we're going to have right here, I see. Texas Tech, very good offense. Utah, very good defense. Utah's favored by 3, total 58. It is a noon game at Utah, so at least it's not a night game for Texas Tech. What do you think here?
Yeah, I was curious to see what the total will come out as, because obviously Texas Tech totals are usually in the low 60s, and Utah games are usually mid to high 40s. Utah came in as a -3 favorite here. And, these two teams have never met each other, so that'll be exciting. When you sort of look, between these two teams, you have Texas Tech that's led by Joey McGuire. He's in his 4th year. Mac Leftwich is the offensive coordinator. Shilwood is the defensive coordinator. Utah's, of course, coached by Kyle Whittingham. He's been there he's been an incredibly long tenured coach. They've been here over 20 years. Texas Tech, though, returns 13 starters overall, and Utah returns 12 starters, right? So I think that's pretty interesting. Utah also returns all 5 offensive linemen, which I think is very, very important. And then you combine that with Texas Tech coming in here with that big win against Oregon State. Maybe they're feeling themselves a little bit here, beating Oregon State 45-14, destroying Kent, destroying Arkansas Pine Bluff. They're not battle tested. I think Utah's a little bit more battle tested. Nice win against Wyoming and UCLA. They didn't play well against Wyoming early on. They were only up 3-0 before they pushed it. I think they were kind of sleeping ahead, looking forward to this game. I think Wyoming will not be sleeping ahead here. I think Utah will not be sleeping in the first half here against Texas Tech. I like Utah here. I think Texas Tech has not been challenged. I think Utah has been challenged. They didn't play well last game either. I'm going to back Utah here against Texas Tech. Syracuse, Craig, which is one of my plays. I like the over between Syracuse and Colgate. Syracuse comes in now as a 17-point dog to Clemson. Clemson, by the way, is 1-2. Syracuse coming off back-to-back wins. Clemson, of course, beat Troy, did not cover. Lost to Georgia Tech, did not cover. Lost to LSU, did not cover. They've now not covered 4 straight games. Who do you like here between Syracuse and Clemson?
Yeah, it's like one of those. You want to buy low. You can't buy lower than what Clemson is right now. I mean, they were top 3 team to go to the playoffs in the preseason rankings. They're 1-2 now. Their chance of getting the playoffs is like 10% now. It was like 90% before the season, because you looked at their schedule, you looked at everything. You're like, this team could probably do what they did last year and actually be the schedule. And that's why sometimes you just can't look at the schedule. I thought Georgia Tech win. Not so much, not so fast. We picked that last week. I do think they cover this week, though. Dabo Swinney, I think, is going to get the boys up. Syracuse always kind of gives these big boys problems, but I think this is the year where Syracuse doesn't have the Jimmies and Joes that they've had in past years. They usually have one or two guys that it's like, this is a guy that you just get in open space and can beat you. They don't have that this year, and I think Clemson just lays the wood. Now, I don't like the 17 for the full game. I would take the first half. I think these guys are going to come up very upset. I think it's 8.5 to 9, no problem. I think they win by double digits in the first half. So let's say Clemson minus 9.5, let's just say, in the first half.
Don't forget, free $60 worth of free premium selections, docsports.com/ICCT. If you want to try us out, that is the best way. Free $60 worth of premium selections. You try Craig and I out, and you get our premium selections and our fantastic analysis piped in there.
Now, next game we have a line for is UAB Tennessee. Tennessee coming off a huge overtime loss where if the kicker just makes it, that Tennessee wins a regulation. They're a 40-point favorite against UAB here, which UAB is just they are 2-1 on the year. Total 69. What do you like here?
I like Tennessee. Don't forget, UAB is coached by obviously Trent Dilfer, right? Who has won a Super Bowl, amazingly. But Trent Dilfer here, keep in mind that he's in his third year at the UAB. Tennessee's coached by Josh Heupel, right? Who's an offensive-minded coach. UAB does return 8 starters, 4 on offense and 4 on defense. Tennessee's going to be pissed coming into this game. You have UAB that lost by 14 Navy, so that's not and they gave up 42 points to Alabama State, so that's not good either. Tennessee hung 72 on East Tennessee State, hung 42 on Syracuse, losing to UGA in a heartbreaker. How does this team bounce back? They're going to drop 7. They're going to beat the snot out. And, of course, they know that UAB is coached by Trent Dilfer, which has them, put a target on their back too. I like Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to win by about 45 or so. I can easily see something to the tune of 64 to 64 to 14 or something like that. And they end up covering. All right, Craig, Wagner versus Central Michigan. And there's no line there. I know you're waiting for the Wagner game. I'm sorry about that. Oregon State facing Oregon here. By the way, if you go to Wagner, don't find that offensive. Please don't come to the comment section and be like, Wagner is amazing. I'm sure it is. Oregon State facing Oregon. Oregon State coming in as a 35-point road dog on a total of 55.5. Craig, 71% of the public is on Oregon here. Not that that's meant anything. They destroyed Oklahoma State. Oregon does come off that win against Northwestern, but they did not cover. Oregon State comes out that sad loss to Texas Tech. Oregon State, Craig, is 0-3. The sadness of the former pack continues. Who do you like here?
Very tough spot for Oregon as far as if to cover, because guess who they have next week? The game of the year, potentially. They play Penn State at Penn State next week. So as much as I do think Oregon probably gets up big early, I think they're going to be calling off the dogs as early as possible, resting people to keep everybody healthy. I think you take the points. I know I've told you how bad Oregon State and Washington State. Look at the line. It tells you how bad they are. But even when that happens, sometimes these teams, it's the most one-sided games, they get a pick six, they get a pump block, weird things happen, and you still can get covers on these really big numbers. So I would small play, and I mean small play, Oregon State plus the 35. I actually think this line might even go up where you get it at 35.5. So maybe I wait till game time. But I do like the dog with Oregon playing a big sandwich game with next week Penn State on the slate. Next game, North Carolina at UCF. UCF has looked pretty good, 2-0 in the year. They're facing a North Carolina team that's looked better since that ugly loss to TCU. UCF favored by 6.5, total 49. Can Bill Belichick get this nice road win here?
I'm going to be honest. I was a little surprised to see UCF a little favored here. I thought that UNC – I guess UNC did beat Richmond and did beat Charlotte. They actually covered back-to-back games. UCF, of course, comes into this game. They're 2-0, but who have they beaten? They beat Jacksonville State and North Carolina A&T and covered the minus 38. So the question that – these two teams have never met either. The question that begs here is how does UNC respond after back-to-back wins, and how does UCF – get up for this game? And I think UCF gets up for this game. I don't trust UNC coming off back-to-back wins. Bill Belichick obviously signed a 5-year deal so that when he turns 105 years old, he'll still be coaching this team. So you have, there's a lot of flux in UNC as well in some ways too. But I got to be honest with you, man. I think that you have a UCF team that is going to get up for this game. They're going to be rocking. By the way, do you know how big UCF's campus is? They have so many students. I think it's like 50, 60,000 plus. So they're going to be absolutely rocking here. I will tell you that UCF has Kansas State on deck. But I will also tell you that UNC has Clemson on deck. So keep that in mind too. I think this is a UCF team that actually did quite well. This is a team that lost to Utah, right, to close out last year, that lost to West Virginia, that lost to Arizona State. I mean, they've played a pretty tough schedule, and I think this is the first meaningful game that they've played. They've been prepping for this game, whereas North Carolina has much bigger fish to fry, and they might be flying high from that Richmond win. I'm going to back UCF here. I think this kind of makes sense here. I like UCF minus the points. Craig, Ball State versus UConn here. Ball State, 20.5-point dog on the road. Both these teams are 1-2. UConn, of course, comes off that loss to Delaware where they were favored by 8.5. And I've always told you about Delaware. That was my sneaky pick from the beginning of the year. I've been telling you about Delaware. And, of course, people think I'm crazy until they realize I'm not. Who do you like here between these two teams?
Yeah, I even think we gave out Delaware last week on these group of videos. So UConn's got to be upset about that. And 20.5 is no joke, though, to cover. And I got to take Ball State plus the 20.5. Now, are they a good team? No. They're the bottom 3 team, I think, in the MAC this year. But 20.5 points is just a boatload of points when it comes to – I'm not saying UConn's a bottom of tier team as well, but they're not that far from it. They're a bottom half of college football. Like, they're not in the top half of college football. Give me Ball State, small play. Don't go crazy with this one. Next game, talk about a bad team. This might be one of the worst. Kent State here, 1-2 on the year. They are a 44.5-point underdog at Florida State here. Of course, Florida State coming in 2-0, total of 55.5. What do you like here?
I absolutely love that Florida State scored 77 points in their last game against Tennessee because they did not want to have a quote-unquote letdown after the Alabama win, and because they've done that before in the past. So they're 2-0 here. Kent State rolls in, losing to Buffalo, but that was impressive. They only lost by 3 points against the Buffalo team. They were a 24-point dog. They lost against Texas Tech 14-62, but they covered that game too. So now these two teams play each other, and they've obviously never played each other. And Kent State obviously is known for the famous alumni, our Lord and Savior, Nick Saban, used to coach there, obviously. So Kent State is near and dear to my heart. Having said that, Kent State here comes with Mark Carney, who's their interim coach since Kenny Burns was fired. Mike Norvell here, and with Gus Malzahn as his offensive coordinator and Tony White as his defensive coordinator. Look, Florida State returns 3 on offense, 5 on defense. Kent State has very few returning starters. This is a sort of a tough game, but I will tell you Florida State has Virginia on deck. Kent State, I thought, was pretty impressive against Buffalo and Texas Tech. I love the fact that Florida State hung 77 on TMC. However, Kent State is a much more difficult team than that. I love the fact that 75% of the public is riding FSU, and I think that's wrong. I'm going to back Kent State here plus the 44.5. If there's just, maybe they blow them out, and that's fine. But if you're Kent State, how do you not get up for this game? And they've actually looked pretty decent against Buffalo when they were almost a 3.5 point or a 3.5 touchdown dog. Give me Kent State.
Don't forget, use that 10% off promo code. This week's promo code is Cowboy10, all one word. Get you 10% off on the weekly or the full season passes. So make sure you get in on it and start winning today.
Craig, Troy, speaking of Buffalo, Troy is on the road at Buffalo, catching 6 points on a total of 42. Of course, Troy is 1-2 coming off that loss against Memphis and a missed cover. Buffalo, of course, comes off beating Kent State, but then they didn't cover the 24 points. They only won by a field goal. And given that their history, they have not played since 2018. Who do you like? Oh, I'm losing you, Craig. There we go.
Sorry. I think this is a pick'em game. The line is just wrong. Like, it's just wrong. I mean, we saw last night, Kent State had a chance to beat beat Buffalo last week. And I just don't think Kent State's a very good team in the MAC. I think Troy's a really good team. They've just played some tough teams. I think Memphis is good. I think Memphis is going to show that again this week. So for that reason, I think Troy wins this game, but I will take the 6. We'll just dabble a little bit on the money line in this one. As I think Troy it really should be, I think, a pick 'em game, maybe like 2.5, but Buffalo, but I think it's just 3 points the wrong way. Next game, very, very good game. Auburn at Oklahoma. I think the winner of this team has a real shot at being in the playoffs this year. Oklahoma is surprisingly, I thought this would be about a 3-point line. It's 6.5. Oklahoma's a 6.5-point favorite, total 47.5. What do you like here in this SEC matchup?
Auburn. There's just no doubt Auburn, because if you remember, Oklahoma went into Auburn last year and beat them 27-21. And I know a lot of Auburn fans, and they were pissed. Okay, they were like, man, we're really sliding here. We're not playing well. Oklahoma is even coming in and winning, and Venables has saved his job for sure for now. You have an Oklahoma team that beat them 27-21. Auburn did not cover against South Alabama, which I love. They did not cover against Ball State, which I love. They already beat Baylor 38-24. They have the revenge coming, and I absolutely love the fact that Oklahoma beat Michigan and Temple so far, and they destroyed Temple, to be honest with you. And I thought Temple would actually do better in that game, but they didn't. I like Auburn here plus the 6.5. Auburn returns all 5 offensive linemen from last year. I think that is important. Yes, Oklahoma returns 12 starters as well. But I think, you have a coach in Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze's team is better this year than they were last year. And they lost by a touchdown last year, right? And you're going to give them 6.5 points here for a team that's super motivated. And, I think the game against Baylor was an important game. I mean, that was and they didn't just win against Baylor. They won by 2 touchdowns, right? What has Baylor done since then? They beat SMU and they beat Stanford. And I think Auburn plus the 6.5 makes a lot of sense here. And a couple things here. Oklahoma also, they have Texas in 2 weeks. You have Auburn here, who has Texas A&M a week later. But I think Auburn is the way to go here, plus the 6.5. Michigan and Nebraska, Craig, this is at the 3:30 hour on a total of 45.5. Michigan comes in as a 2.5-point road favorite here. Michigan obviously beat them 45-7 a couple of years ago, but they didn't play last year. Michigan comes off that big win against Central Michigan. Their one blemish is, of course, that loss to Oklahoma. Nebraska looks like they're back. They beat Cincinnati, Akron, and HCU. However, they haven't really played anybody. Who do you like, Craig? That's why they're probably a home dog.
Well, Cincinnati, I think, is going to end up looking like a good win at the end of the season because I think Cincinnati is going to be one of those feisty teams all year long. Maybe they're just about 500, but they're one of those teams that, talent-wise, they'll be in most games, I believe. I think that was a good win to start the year. They haven't faced anybody, but if you look, they have a pretty easy schedule. If they win this game, they should win the next 3. So now all of a sudden you're 6-0. They're the Indiana. I had predicted they would probably be the Indiana as far as the Big Ten of last year, where it's like they kind of avoided some of the best teams or caught them when they're down. And I think this is catching Michigan when they're down. Underwood is unbelievable talent. I just don't think they should be a favorite on the road. A rookie quarterback, first-year guy, I don't care how great you are. Nebraska is a tough place to play. At least it's a daytime game, I would say. But I think Nebraska is the play here. I think you take them plus 2.5. I would probably buy the 0.5 point, get it to 3, because I think this is going to be a very tight game late. So give me the home dogs here. I think they do win this one. Next game, Tulane at Ole Miss here. And Tulane's been pretty daggone good team. Last week was impressive blowout win at Duke, just like we called. Ole Miss been very, very good. 3-0, 2-1 against the spread. Ole Miss is favored by 11.5, total of 61.5. What do you like here?
I think this surprised people that Ole Miss is not a bigger favorite against Tulane, maybe a little bit. Tulane is coached by John Sumrall, right, in his second year. He's got offensive he used to be a co-defensive coordinator, right? He used to be a linebackers coach. So he's actually a pretty good defensive coach. Lane Kiffin, of course, he's done great. Ole Miss returns just 4 starters, by the way. So I think that'll affect them a little bit too. Keep in mind that Tulane, that win against Northwestern now looks pretty impressive. And that line was dropping because a lot of homers were like, oh, Northwestern is going to be so good and blah, blah, blah. And that line kept dropping. And, of course, Tulane took it to them 23-3. They beat South Alabama 33-31 because they were looking ahead. They didn't cover the 13-point line because they were looking ahead Duke, and they beat them 34-27. Let me tell you something. Tulane is a good defensive team, okay? This is a defensive-minded coach. This is the same coach that, though they lost to Florida, they held an Army. Last year, they held Navy, Temple, and Charlotte to 3, 6, and 0 points at the end of October and early November. All right. So now who is the kryptonite for Ole Miss? A defensive-minded coach. Not that they're going to be a kryptonite, but Ole Miss did beat Arkansas. They beat Kentucky. They beat Georgia State 63-7. I want you to know something. The totals in those games are 60 and et cetera, right? This one's also at 61.5. I think the difference in this game is Tulane's defensive toughness. I sort of wanted to take the under just because I think Tulane's but what if Tulane is an active dog? You know what I mean? So that's the only thing that kind of, what if Tulane gets up early and then Ole Miss has to come back and open it up? I think the safer side here is, the funny thing is Ole Miss is not going to be looking ahead on this team at all. They're going to be focused. They know what they did to Duke, so they're going to be focused. But, Ole Miss also has LSU on deck too. Tulane, has, Tulsa on deck, so it's not like they're going to be looking ahead. too much. I'm going to take Tulane plus the 11.5, and you probably wait till game time to even get plus 12. Because I think people are going to be like, oh, Ole Miss, 2 touchdowns, of course. But I think that's wrong. So give me Tulane. Isn't it funny? Tulane playing lane. Haha. I'm here all week, folks. Next up, Craig, Purdue is on the road at Notre Dame. Purdue is a 26.5-point dog. Notre Dame, a total of 55. Notre Dame, Craig, is 0-2, and I feel bad because Texas A&M had revenge against them. Miami was pissed off and also had revenge. They just had a horrible schedule to open up the year. Purdue coming to this, losing to USC 17-33, but they didn't get destroyed because USC could have hung 70 on them maybe. These two teams did meet last year, and Notre Dame won 66-7. Who do you like, Craig?
Tough spot for Notre Dame. They also have Arkansas next week.
Horrible year for them, dude.
I mean, Arkansas next week. Arkansas is pretty good. I think they're going to show it this week. Coach Odom, this is a much improved team. And it's just a tough spot when Notre Dame is so bad after losing. I mean, Notre Dame's this close to being 2-0, having 2 very good wins. Just how close it is in college football against really good teams. I'm going to take the underdog here. I just think if you wait till game time, I think this might even slide up to like 27 and a half. I don't think it'll get to 28. But I do think Notre Dame gets up pretty good, and then Purdue kind of, makes it look a little closer at the end as Notre Dame's kind of saving some guys for that big game. That game at Arkansas or against Arkansas next week is a must win because then they're 2-2. And if you look at it, you never know, like last year where there's a lot of 2-loss teams, and those 2 losses would be early. And I think Notre Dame could have some good wins from here on out. But I'm going to take Purdue plus the points in this one. Don't forget, the best value we have here at YouTube is the YouTube premium products. We've got level 1, that's level 1 is. Don't forget about the premium products we have at YouTube. We have 3 levels of premium. Level 1 is Lenny's video every day, $4.99. Plus, you get early access to all the football, and we do some live content that's exclusive to our members. Level 2 is Indian Cowboy, where you get extra plays from Indian Cowboy every day, video format, and you can talk to them back and forth. And then level 3, you get all 3 levels. Level 2, you actually get level 1 as well. So you get all 3 levels as you move up, and you get 3 expert plays every day from Doc Sports Experts, one of them being from me. So make sure you check that out. Very simple, $49.99 a month for the level 3. Next game, MAC battle here, Toledo at Western Michigan. Toledo's a very, very good team, if people don't know. -14, total 51.5. Can they cover here on the road?
You're right. They are a good team, and you've been on Toledo from the beginning. You were on them when they faced Kentucky, right? They covered as a 10-point dog. They beat Western Kentucky 45-21 as a 7.5-point favorite. So we knew they were going to be pretty good there. They covered against Morgan as well. Western Michigan, of course, scored 0 points against Illinois their last game. They lost to North Texas 30-33, and of course they lost to Michigan State 6-23. So they're 0-3 out of the gates. Okay, these two teams haven't met since 2023 when Toledo won 49-31. Toledo's a very good team, right? However, at some point, Western Michigan is going to score more than 0 points like they did against Illinois or Michigan State when they put up 6. They did put up 30 against North Texas. And Toledo gave up 21 points to Western Kentucky as well, and they had a shutout in their last game. I think what happens here is Western Michigan has an offensive-minded coach. They haven't really showed their potential yet, but, you have sort of an offensive-minded coach here in Lance Taylor. He used to be a running backs coach and a receivers coach. And then Toledo, of course, returns 10 starters, 5 on offense, 5 on defense. I think the only thing I can look at is the over here. I like Western Michigan as an active dog. I think they're going to score more points. Toledo's got a fantastic offense as well. It's not like Toledo's looking ahead to anybody. They got Akron, so they're going to be focused coming into this game. Western Michigan has URI next week, so I think the only thing that makes sense for me is the over. Craig, James Madison here, 9-point favorite on the road against Liberty on a total of 49. James Madison, of course, is 1-1. Played well against Louisville, lost 14-28 to their credit. They cover that 15 points. And Liberty comes in having lost to Bowling Green, Eddie George's team, and losing to Jacksonville State. They've now lost 5 straight covers as well. These two teams have not met since 2014. Who do you like?
I thought Liberty was a better team than what I think they really are. Sometimes you're just wrong on your assumptions from year to year. You have to be able to, move on the fly. JMU, I knew was going to be a good team. They showed it. They were in that game with Louisville to actually win outright until at the very end. I think it was a touchdown, a fumble for a touchdown for Louisville late in that game that really kind of made it look a little better. I don't think that was indicative of how close that game was. JMU -9 here, no problem. Not overthink this one. I know Liberty's pretty desperate. It doesn't matter if you're desperate if this other team's just focused in a good team, and I think that's the case. JMU. Louisiana at Eastern Michigan here. Louisiana favored by 2.5 on the road, total of 52. What do you like here?
Well, Louisiana Lafayette comes in as a 2.5-point favorite. I've been pretty high on them all year. Of course, I took them, earlier this year a couple times. I've always thought their coach was pretty good, but they come off a bad loss to Missouri, and they were respected going into Missouri as a 27.5-point dog, and they didn't show up. They did beat McNeese State. They covered against them. Lost to Rice by 2 points. Eastern Michigan, of course, comes in losing to Kentucky 23-48. Eastern Michigan, by the way, has lost 8 straight games dating back to last year. These two teams haven't met since 2022. I find it fascinating that the total sits around 52 points. You would think that this game could go under. However, these are two frustrated teams here. And I think what will happen here, because Eastern Michigan, of course, is coached by Chris Creighton, right? He's built it on defensive toughness. And then you have an offensive-minded coach here in Lafayette and John Troxel. So I think what will happen here is that this game probably goes over the posted total. Remember, Lafayette only returns one starter on defense as well. Eastern Michigan has a bunch of transfers as well. Look, you got two frustrated teams here. I like the fact that Louisiana only put up 10 points against Missouri last game. I like the fact that Eastern Michigan has an offensive-minded coach. They're just not able to cover games right now. Give me the over between Louisiana, Lafayette, and Eastern Michigan. Craig, NC State here on the road against Duke. Duke coming off that disappointing loss against Tulane. NC State, of course, is 3-0, and yet they're an underdog. Even though they beat Wake Forest, nobody respects them here, it seems. They beat Virginia and ECU. These are all good teams. Duke, of course, lost to Illinois, lost to Tulane, but maybe the line is the way it is because they're saying Duke is not going to lose 3 in a row, and they're going to get up for this game. Duke did beat them 29-19 last year, but NC State has the revenge. Who do you like? Craig, help us.
Coach Manny Diaz, I think, is up against it this year. These bottom half of the Power 4 conferences, they're basically like MAC schools now, where they're just feeding the bigger teams. The best players just move on to the next level, and then they end up having to go get guys from the MAC type schools. And if you hit on some nice players, you end up doing pretty good. If not, you struggle. You saw they could not stop Tulane last week. And we already talked about Tulane. They're a very good team, but you give up that kind of number against them. And Illinois wants to run the ball, grind you out. They give up way too many points. NC State was looking past Wake Forest in that, and they still blew them out the second half to get the win and the cover. I don't think they're looking past Duke here to get the revenge here. Give me NC State money line. I don't think we need the points in this ACC clash.
Don't forget, free $60 worth of free premium selections, DocSports.com/ICCT. If you want to try us out, that is the best way. Free $60 worth of premium selections. You try Craig and I out, and you get our premium selections and our fantastic analysis piped in there.
Next game, Mississippi State, a big favorite against NIU, Northern Illinois here. Mississippi State's a 22-point favorite, total of 50 at 4:15 Eastern Standard Time. What do you like here?
Well, these two teams have never met. Of course, NIU has only played 2 games so far. They lost to Maryland 9-20, which was impressive. But was it really that impressive? Because Maryland has, maybe bigger fish to fry, whatnot. But, so they lost 9-20 against, and they've had some time to prep for this game. They've had some time off as well. The last game was on September the 5th. This is a team that, of course, beat Holy Cross 19-17, did not cover the 13.5 there. Mississippi State beat Alcorn 63-0. They beat Arizona State. They beat Southern Miss. I gotta give some laurels here to Jeff Lebby, right? We didn't know if Jeff Lebby was good enough or whatnot, but he's an offensive-minded coach. He's obviously good enough to be a head coach. Good for him. Northern Illinois, of course, has been coached by Thomas Hammock. He's been there since 2019. NIU returns 5 starters from last year's team, but Mississippi State, Craig, returned 16 starters, 9 on offense, 7 on defense. This team was good. This team was good to start off with. NIU, as far as their upcoming games is considered, they have, San Diego State. Maybe they get up for this game. Mississippi State, of course, has Tennessee on deck, which kind of worried me as well. But I think Mississippi State has enough healthy respect for Northern Illinois for that brand name, for what it is, to get up and do well. And I'm going to back I'm going to back North. And plus, Mississippi State knows that this team gave Maryland some fits, right? They know they're not dumb. I mean, they look at the game tape and stuff. And when you go back and look at it, this team, lost. Maryland was only up 10-3 at the half on this team. And at one point, it was 13-9 going into the fourth quarter. So I just don't like the fact that 73% of the public is on them. I will tell you this, Northern Illinois has a much better defense than people give them credit for, but the public is also on the under too. I guess I lean on Mississippi State, and I guess I lean on the under. If I had to pick something, it would probably be the under, just because I think Mississippi State's a better defense than people give them credit for. They held Arizona State to 20, and obviously they've put up 63 points in the last game, so it could be a massive letdown as well. Give me the under in this game, but I'm not all about it. All right, Craig, Temple here got clobbered. I thought they would do so much better against Oklahoma, and they did not. They got clobbered by Oklahoma 3-42. Georgia Tech coming off that really nice win against Clemson, of course. They have Wake Forest on deck. Does Georgia Tech have a letdown here? Temple coming in as a big dog here. These two teams have not met since 2019. Do you like Temple on the bounce back and Georgia Tech on the letdown, or does Georgia Tech keep churning out some great wins?
And Georgia Tech's not a team that lets down. They just don't have that in their DNA. They're a grinding team, and they're physical. They took it to Clemson. I mean, they really shouldn't have had to come right down to the end to win that game. They were pretty much dominated the first half and dominated the fourth quarter. They didn't play great the third quarter. I don't think they have a letdown here. This Temple team got hammered last week against Oklahoma. I think they're going to be a little bruised and broken and have a travel on the road. I'm not a big guy to lay a big number, but this is one I don't mind. Georgia Tech -24. Next game, we talked about how great Delaware was in their win against UConn. They're a dog here against FIU. FIU did beat FAU, their rival, last week. So two teams coming off of, pretty good wins. FIU favored by 5.5 total, 55.5. A lot of fives there. What do you like?
I think I like Delaware, right? But the problem with that selection, this is the reason why I think people like us, because we sort of give them the full background of an entire game. We don't just we literally give you the entire picture, which I think separates us from many of the other podcasts out there. I mean, I like everybody. I'm an equal lover and an equal hater, but I love everybody. And it's I think we give a big, broader picture for everybody, including, an entire, and how many podcasts would have told you about Delaware? I can promise you the answer is probably zero. I can tell you that the only thing you probably knew about Delaware is that they were a state prior to this. So Delaware and plus they have really good grass courts, Craig. You should go check out that grass court in Delaware. It's a great grass court series up there. Bublik played there. All right, so Delaware. Sorry, Craig. Sometimes I have ADHD, but thank you for keeping me in check. The public likes my ADHD as well. So Delaware faced Connecticut and beat them 44-41. It sucks for Jim Mora, but we called it here. We said that Jim Mora is going to have issues against Delaware. And they won as an outright 8.5-point dog. But can they continue that progress? Delaware also returned 16 or 17 starters from last year. That's how we knew that they were going to be decent. They didn't cover against Delaware State. That is true. But, of course, they almost covered against Colorado. That was a push. FIU comes off a nice win against FAU. They played pretty well against Penn State, too, covering. They've covered every game this year, by the way. So the question about FIU is that they have Connecticut on decks, and maybe they could be looking ahead. Then you have Delaware here who comes into this game, who has Western Kentucky on deck. I thought the total was interesting because I think that spoke a little bit here. The total sat at 55.5. Craig, only 20% of the public is backing Delaware too. I think what makes sense to me is to back Delaware plus the 5.5. I think they have a lot of returning players. I don't think FIU is going to get up for this game at all, especially after beating, their rival here. Ryan Carty is in his fourth year. He's got a good offensive coordinator as well. FIU is coached by a good former Tennessee quarterback, Willie Simmons. He's a very good coach. Again, Delaware returned 7 starters on the defense, 3 on the offensive line. FIU is a lot more turnover, and they only had 3 starters back from last year. I think FIU could win, but I could see Delaware covering the 5.5. There's just too much experience. There's just too much team of trying to get up for this game, and I'm going to back Delaware. I don't think they have a letdown from the UConn game. Craig, Arkansas State here on the road against Kennesaw State, the Owls. Arkansas State, a -6.5-point road favorite on a total of 56.5, by the way. These two teams have never met. Arkansas State coming off back-to-back losses, but understandable. They lost to Arkansas and Iowa State, two very good teams. Kennesaw State beat Merrimack 27-13, lost to Indiana earlier this year, 9-56. Google them if you don't know who the coach is. And they lost to Wake Forest. They covered that first. This is so funny, right? When a team covers against Wake Forest, right? They cover that 18-point line. Then every other team knows about them, such as Indiana and Merrimack, who ended up both covering. So who do you like, Craig?
I thought this said these are both teams I like as underdogs. Like, I think they're going to be good underdog bets all year long. And so for that reason, I got to lean towards Kennesaw State. Arkansas State played the game of their careers against Iowa State. It really wasn't that close at the final score if you watched any of that game, although they did play much better than I thought they could. I just think this is a big letdown spot after that, close, what they feel was probably closer than expected loss last week at home against Iowa State. Give me Kennesaw State here. I think they're a live underdog to win outright, but I'm going to take the 6.5. Next game, a good Big 12 battle. West Virginia coming off a huge upset of their rival Pitt in the backyard brawl. Kansas, been up and down this year a little bit, but they're a big favorite here, minus 13, total 54.5. What do you like here?
Well, West Virginia won 32-28 last year. And, West Virginia, it's been okay. They beat Pittsburgh 31-24. Rich Rod has done well. They lost to Ohio in a bit of a surprise, but they were only favored by 3.5, so it really wasn't that big of a surprise. Of course, they beat Robert Morris prior to that. Kansas comes in losing to Missouri in a game that they're really disappointed they lost. They lost 31-42 as a 5.5-point dog. The problem for Kansas right now is they don't have any quality wins. I don't think Fresno is that much of a quality win, nor is Wagner. So this is a game that they have to win. They also have revenge from last year, too. I like the fact they're coming in as 13-point favorites. They need this game. And I can see West Virginia having a letdown after that big win against Pittsburgh. Lance Leopold needs this game, of course. And then West Virginia only returned 3 starters from last year. Kansas lost quite a few starters as well. But I think this is a must-win for Kansas. I don't think this is a must-win for West Virginia, who's already 2-1. And they have one quality win. Kansas does not have a quality win. And that loss against Missouri, I want you to know, Kansas was up 21-6 after the first quarter. So that stings, right? And then, Missouri started coming back, and it was 21-21 at the half. Of course, they can score in bunches. And the second half, they only put up 10 points, basically. So I think Kansas will bounce back here. And I like Kansas minus the points. I might put it on my card. I'm not sure if I want to lay that much, but I do like Kansas. Craig, one of the most interesting things here is people are really high on South Carolina. But South Carolina, and you know how high I am on that Vanderbilt coach. I even said, if things don't work out with Kalen DeBoer, they need to go get Coach Lee of Vanderbilt. That is the next best coach, and you will hear it from me over and over again. Nobody's thinking about it. They just don't understand how incredibly difficult and how incredibly amazing what he has done. He beat them back-to-back years. Like, that's how good he is, right? So now you have South Carolina here who lost to Vanderbilt 7-31. South Carolina, beat Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech looks like garbage. Missouri probably was looking ahead to South Carolina at some point, but they are 3-0 out of the gates. They beat Louisiana Lafayette. Missouri, Craig, has also covered 8 in a row dating back to last year. South Carolina beat them 34-30. Does Missouri get the revenge, or does South Carolina bounce back?
This line shocked me. Like, I'm always out there putting my own lines. I thought this would be like 9.5. I just think that South Carolina, they were embarrassed last week. That was never close. Like, never close. That is a very good Vandy team, but that's not as good as the finals. Like, they shouldn't lose that bad to probably any team in the league, to be very honest. Coach Beamer, I think, is going to have them jacked to the sky. I think this is like upset alert type game. They have a chance to win this game. I just think Missouri is flying high, but really, who have they beat? If you don't think that Kansas team's good, which I just don't think they're great, then they really haven't beat anybody, and this is their first test. And South Carolina did beat them last year, so they do have a little revenge spot for Missouri. But I still think South Carolina plus the points is the play. Next game, we've got some under-the-radar games, so we'll kind of knock these out quickly. So we try to keep this about an hour total podcast. Coastal Carolina at South Alabama. South Alabama favored by 14.5. That was one of my plays last week. They did cover on the road last week. Total 51. What do you like here?
Well, both these teams are 1-2, and they haven't met since 2021. Coastal Carolina did not play well against East Carolina. They lost 0-38. They haven't covered their last 4 games. South Alabama, I'm a huge fan of their coaching staff, coached by Applewhite. This is a team that lost to Auburn 15-31. We predicted them to cover there. This is a team that lost to Tulane 31-33. How impressive is that now looking, right? So, and then Coastal Carolina, I think this is a team that's just not going to go anywhere. I think, losing 4 straight covers. I mean, maybe they show up here, but I like South Alabama here, man, especially South Alabama coming off back-to-back losses. They're going to be super motivated here. Coastal Carolina has Tim Beck as their, he's in his 3rd year. Major Applewhite, of course, is there. Paul Petrino is obviously there too. And I think the only South Alabama also returned 5 starters on offense, 3 on defense. I think South Alabama, even though they're big public favorites here, coming off back-to-back losses, they're going to be ticked. Give me South Alabama. Craig, Nevada facing Western Kentucky. Nevada comes in as a 10-point dog, public heavily on Western Kentucky here. Nevada coming off a loss against Middle Tennessee where, they lost 13-14 as 9-point chalk. Western Kentucky, of course, lost to Toledo 21-45. Who do you like, Craig?
Yeah, because Toledo is a good team, Western Kentucky, that loss, people see that, and the public sees it as a bad loss. That's not a bad loss. Toledo is really good. They probably should have had a chance to beat Kentucky late, a couple of bad bounces. They did cover. I think Western Kentucky handles. This is a tough spot. Long travel for Nevada, and Nevada on a huge bounce-back spot. Give me give me Western Kentucky as the favorite, -10. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on all the great content we have here at Doc Sports. Next game, Boise State at Air Force. Air Force, always a team I love playing as a home underdog here, but it's asking a lot here. Boise's favored by 10, total 51.5. What do you like?
Well, Boise State is obviously led by Spencer Danielson here. He's got a defensive-minded background. Air Force, of course, coached by Troy Calhoun. He's been there. He's the longest tenured service academy head coach so far. Boise State returns 7 offensive starters. On defense, they return 6 defensive starters. So that's how this game sets up, and you get a 1-1, 2 1-1 teams here. Boise State, of course, lost that first game against South Florida, 7-34, not even close. And then they face Eastern Washington and beat them 51-14. Air Force comes in losing to Utah State, 30-49, ugly loss for them. And then, of course, they beat Bucknell prior to that. Head-to-head, Boise State beat them 27-19 in what was a pretty close game about 2 years ago. Look, this game, I don't really want to go against Air Force here, coming off that 19-point loss to Utah State, who's actually a pretty decent team. At the same time, how does Boise State respond to coming off their biggest win of the year? This total sits at around 51.5 as well. I think what happens here is that Boise State has a letdown after scoring 51 points in their last game. And I think Air Force is going to be ticked off as they gave up 49 points to Utah State. And I think prior to that, that's the most amount of points Air Force has given up in their last 8 games. They gave up 52 to New Mexico at one point. Then last year, they gave up 21 to Colorado State immediately next game. Prior to the 49 against Utah State, they gave up 13, 20, 19-0. I like the under in this game, Craig. Craig Marshall, 2.5-point road favorites at Middle Tennessee, total of 47. Marshall's 1-2. Middle Tennessee is 1-2. And they haven't met since 2021. Who do you like?
Tough spot for Marshall. Travel last week, travel again this week, facing a Middle Tennessee team. I think they're decent. I really do, and I think Marshall's one of those teams. I've said it several times. I think maybe every time we've talked about Marshall, I think I've gotten them. This is a team that lost everybody. They got rid of a coach that won the conference championship because we still don't know why, and it's not paid off. It was not a good decision. It's going to continue to be a bad decision. Give me Middle Tennessee. Outright underdog winner here. Don't even need the points. Take them on the money line. Next game, I think the winner of this game in the Big Ten becomes the third team, potentially will be the third team to get into the college football playoffs. Indiana was that team last year. Illinois is trying to dethrone them and be that team this year. Illinois favored by 4.5, total 52. Can Coach Brett Bielema get this nice road win here?
What a great way to turn around the program, huh, Coach Bielema? I mean, he came over from Arkansas, and he's really turned this program around. Props to him for really just changing the entire culture up there. So Illinois beat this team 48-45 about 2 years ago, so bear that in mind. Both these teams are perfect. They're 3-0. Illinois, of course, coached by Bielema in his 5th year. Indiana, of course, Kurt Cignetti. You obviously know him. We've all Googled him by this point. Illinois returns 16 starters, by the way. But Indiana returns a pretty solid defense as well. So then you look into this game with Indiana being favored by 4.5. The question is, Illinois has beaten Western WIU 52-3. They beat Duke 45-19, which looks like shaky right now. And they beat Western Michigan okay. They've also covered 7 in a row. But, Craig, I don't think Illinois has played anybody good for a long time recently. I mean, they beat South Carolina. Keep that in mind. But South Carolina can be questionable, too. I mean, they beat Michigan State, Rutgers, Northwestern, South Carolina, Western Illinois, Duke, and Western Michigan okay. Indiana comes into this game having not beaten, they beat Indiana State, Kennesaw, and Old Dominion. I know what you're going to say is who have they played, but I feel like their 4 prior games before that was Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, right? And Purdue was sandwiched in there. I like Indiana here with the revenge. I think Indiana's played a lot tougher schedule dating back to last year. And I think Indiana, I trust their coach a little bit here. And I think Indiana surprises and wins. Craig, Washington here as a 20.5-point favorite on the road against Washington State. Washington State, of course, comes off that embarrassing loss to North Texas, which we rode North Texas on. Washington coming off that big 70-10 win. These two teams met last year. Washington shocking everybody, sort of winning 24-19. Who do you like?
We talked about how bad Washington State is, but this is the all-time sandwich game, a look-ahead spot. A look-ahead spot for Washington. They play at home next week, Ohio State, the number one team in the country. I think they're looking past them. Ohio State's rested this week. I think this is a great spot for the rival Washington State to keep this close. So is Washington State team bad? Yes. That's why they're getting 3 touchdowns here. Give me the underdog by the half a point if need to, although I do think this slips up to 21 either way. I think Washington State loses, but I think it's much closer than people think. Next game, Stanford and Virginia, 2 teams that are just not great, I don't think, especially Stanford. Total is 49. Virginia's favored by 16.5. What do you think here?
Monster win by Stanford last week against Boston College, winning 30-20 as a 14-point dog. Maybe they're buying into Frank Reich's system. They did lose to Hawaii opener, which I was on Hawaii. They lost to BYU 30-27. That loss doesn't seem so bad now. Virginia comes in beating, William & Mary 55-16. They lost to NC State 31-35. They beat Coastal Carolina. They look pretty impressive. Maybe they get up for Stanford here. I get it. Maybe Stanford has a letdown here. I get that too. Stanford's offense looks pretty good. Boston College is very well coached by Bill O'Brien. Virginia can put up a great deal of points too. This total, of course, sits at 49, which kind of surprised me too. Stanford coming in as a heavy dog as well. Stanford returns 11 starters, 5 on offense, 6 on defense. Virginia returns about 9. But I'm going to back Virginia here. I think Virginia gets up for this game. I don't trust Stanford coming off of a win. I like the fact that Virginia lost to NC State. Their only quality wins here are Coastal Carolina and William & Mary. They need a quality win here, and I think they get it at the backs of Stanford, like Virginia. A decent amount. Georgia State here hooking up against Vanderbilt. Georgia State a 26.5-point road dog against Vandy on a total of 53.5. Does Vanderbilt have a letdown after that monster win against South Carolina? They beat Virginia Tech. Georgia State, of course, beat Murray, but they did not cover the -32. These two teams met last year, and guess what, Craig? Georgia State beat them 36-32. Who do you like?
Yeah, after that loss last year, remember what Vandy became. Like, it really kind of catapulted an amazing year that was Vandy in the big turnaround. I like Vandy in the first half in this one. I do think they kind of cruise late and probably maybe costs us the backdoor cover if you're a Vandy favorite better here. But I think they're like, hey, we're not having a letdown, and we remember what you did to us last year. Give me Vandy in the first half. I think it's 13.5. I see it most places, maybe even some 14s out there. I like Vandy. I think they're going to be up like 20 at half. Give me Vandy, no letdown in at least the first half.
All right, this week's promo code, Cowboy 10, Cowboy 10. I know when you looked at me, you were like, that's a Cowboy. Cowboy 10 gets you 10% off weekly, monthly, and the season package. And that's just because you're watching this video. So we appreciate you watching this video. Promo code this week, Cowboy 10.
Next game, a good game in the Big 12. Arizona State, kind of a must-win spot here. Baylor's looked better since that opening loss to Auburn. Baylor -2.5, total 60.5. What do you like here?
These two storied programs, I would say, have never met this year. I've never met ever, I should say. Arizona State, of course, beat Texas State. They had, they had a close game last year, but not this year. They won 34-15. Arizona State shocked by Mississippi State a little bit, losing 20-24, but not really. Jeff Lebby's team had revenge from last year. They played them close last year. Of course, they're going to be better this year, and they beat them. Baylor comes into this game, beating Stanford and SMU, and they lost to Auburn. So both these teams would love to get a big win here. I think when you look at the points, Arizona State, I believe, has the more impressive loss, I would say. Mississippi State's a good team. And the fact they lost to that team, I think, is impressive. The fact that Baylor beat SMU, okay, great. And they lost to Auburn as well. Okay, that's fine. But I would say Arizona, obviously Kenny Dillingham is a very good coach. Baylor is led by, Dave Aranda as well. Arizona State returned still 16 players from last year's squad, and that's hard to ignore. And Baylor returned 7 starters on offense and about 7 on defense. They returned quite a bit of players too. But I think the correct side here is Arizona State. I think Arizona State they were really impressive against Mississippi State. That was a game that Mississippi State threw everything at them, and they almost won. Give me Arizona State here. Craig, Florida here, hooking up against Miami. Florida's just had a brutal schedule. They opened up against LIU, which is fine, and South Florida was better than advertised. They played LSU with revenge and didn't win that game. So now they come off back-to-back losses. And guess what they get now? They get to face Miami, who beat them 41-17 last year. Miami, of course, throttled USF 49-12, and they're 3-0 out of the gates, including that big win against Notre Dame. Who do you like, Craig?
I love Miami in this spot. Miami's catching Florida as kind of desperate. And Coach Napier, I think, his seat couldn't get any hotter. I just don't see how he makes it through this year, or definitely doesn't gets fired in the offseason. I think Miami lays the wood here. I just think they're not feeling bad for Florida. They're like, hey, we're going to put it down to them. And I think this is a really good Miami team. My question was offense with them. I didn't know what Carson Beck was going to be, but he's been great. Yeah. Give me Miami in a rout. Miami minus 7.5. No problem in this one. Next game, Southern Miss at Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech is -3 favorite here, total 51. Two teams that are 2-1 straight up. And Louisiana Tech 3-0 against the spread. Can they keep it going?
Well, Southern Miss beat App State 38-22. They covered that game. They covered against Jackson State as well. They did lose to Mississippi State to open the year, but not a bad loss, 17-34. And we're high on this podcast on Mississippi State. Louisiana Tech, of course, beat New Mexico State 49-14. They've covered 3 in a row, Craig. You're right. Not only that, they've covered 8 of 9 as well. They covered against LSU, 7-23. I was high on New Mexico State. He did make my IC6 football card, which went 5-1 last week. And they had revenge against New Mexico State, and they got it. So what happens here? Well, I mean, it's interesting the total sits at 51, right? These two teams are going to face – this is going to be a bloodbath battle. This is going to be a great game. I like the fact that Louisiana Tech put up 49 last week. I think they're not going to put as many points this week. I think they're going to have to face a really good defense. Southern Miss, of course, comes into this game putting a back-to-back 38 points. I think this will be one of the best defenses that they've played since Mississippi State. It's been 2 games since they played such a good defense. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this game probably go under the posted total here. And I think both these coaching staffs have pretty good defensive-minded coaches as well. Remember, you have Southern Miss, of course, under Charles Ruff, who, as you always said, we still don't know why he got let go from Marshall. And then you have Louisiana Tech here, but Sonny Cumbie is 4th year. But I like the under, Craig, between these two teams, between Southern Miss and Louisiana Tech. Craig, BYU on the road against ECU, a game that no one would have ever figured. But these two teams, they actually met back in 2022 when ECU won. BYU is a perfect 2-0 out of the gates, beating Stanford and the mighty Portland State. And East Carolina coming off nice wins against Coastal Carolina and Campbell. Who do you like, Craig?
I like ECU a lot in this game. This is probably going to make my card. BYU at home is a beast. They just always struggle on the road, especially at night on the road in Eastern Carolina, one of their bigger home games in a while. I think Eastern Carolina is a shot to win this game outright. I'm going to take the 7.5 points. I mean, ECU I think NC State's going to end up being a top half team in the ACC. They gave them all they can handle. On the road, only lost by 7. So I think that equates to at home against BYU. I think they can keep it within a touchdown. Give me the 7.5 plus ECU. Next game, Sam Houston at Texas. Texas is favored by 41 points, total 51.5. Texas got a lot bigger fish to fry in the future. Do they look past Sam Houston here?
Well, Sam Houston lost to Hawaii 20-37. They lost to UNLV 21-38. They lost to Western Kentucky 24-41. So they're 0-3, right? So that means they're so bad. I don't know, because Sam Houston, they were decent sized, like small dogs to all these games. 10-point dog, 9-point dog, 7-point dog. This is their Super Bowl, of course. UTEP. Texas has lost 5 straight covers, Craig, and they beat UTEP 27-19, but 27-10. There are some boo birds out there for Arch, and this team, they beat San Jose State, but didn't cover that game either. It's been a while since Texas has covered a game. They've lost 5 in a row and lost 8 of 10 games. How quickly do fortunes change, if you will? And then you have a Sam Houston. Obviously they returned 4 of 5 offensive linemen as well, which is pretty good. Hunter Watson is back. He threw for about 1,800 yards last year. I could easily see Sam Houston stay. I mean, they have a lot of key players back. Texas does have bigger fish to fry. After this game, they have Florida on deck, and that's going to be, a game. They got Florida, Oklahoma. They got much bigger game of fish to fry. I'm going to take Sam Houston State here. Plus, these kids would have loved to have been recruited by Texas. I'm going to take Sam Houston State plus the points here.
Don't forget, the best value we have here at YouTube is the YouTube premium products. We've got level 1. That's level 1 is Don't forget about the premium products we have at YouTube. We have three levels of premium. Level 1 is Lenny's video every day, $4.99. Plus, you get early access to all the football, and we do some live content that's exclusive to our members. Level 2 is Indian Cowboy, where you get extra plays from Indian Cowboy every day, video format, and you can talk to them back and forth. And then level 3, you get all three levels. Level 2, you actually get level 1 as well. So you get all three levels as you move up, and you get 3 expert plays every day from Doc Sports experts, one of them being from me. So make sure you check that out. Very simple, $49.99 a month for the level 3.
Louisiana Monroe is on the road at UTEP, catching 5 points on a total of 47. Craig, 82% of the public, though, is on UTEP here. Louisiana Monroe lost that game to Alabama. My Crimson Tide 0-73, and have had to think about that game for about 2 weeks now. UTEP lost a pretty good game against Texas, 10-27. Who do you like?
Yeah, this is a perception game because UTEP played Texas much closer than UL Monroe played Alabama. I like the under, though, in this game. If I had to play someone, I'd probably play Monroe, as I think UTEP will be pretty banged up and coming off the biggest high, playing so close to Texas. But I think the much stronger play, you play the under. I don't see either team getting outside of like 20, 23 points, so I think that leads to the under in this game. Another lower game, UTSA at Colorado State. UTSA favored by 4, total 59. What do you like here?
So UTSA, total of 59 here. UTSA is 1-2. Colorado State's 1-1. UTSA beat Incarnate Word 48-20, and they lost to Texas State for 36-43. But they've been covering a lot of games, right? They've covered 8 of 10 coming into this game, dating back to last year. You have a Colorado State team that beat Northern Colorado 21-17, but did not play well at all. They were 35-point favorites and nearly lost that game to Northern Colorado. This is a team that lost to Washington 21-38, but did cover that game. You have Colorado State, who hasn't played this team since 2016. UTSA is, I believe it's an impressive team, but Colorado State has to play better than they did last week, right? That is the question. UTSA, though, has a strong offensive core. They returned their quarterback in McCown. They returned their running back. They returned their wide receivers, and they returned 4 or 5 offensive linemen as well. They are replacing 11 defensive starters. Colorado is, of course, having a ton of defensive turnover as well. They have only 1 returning starter from Coach Norvell's system. I think UTSA wants relevancy, and I think they'll get up to place Colorado State here. And I'm going to back UTSA. They just have so much experience. And I know Colorado State played like dog poop last week, but they also have Washington State on deck a little bit too. I think they'll play better, but I don't think it's going to matter. Give me UTSA. Wyoming, Craig, I told you about Wyoming from the beginning of the year. I told you about Delaware, and I told you about Wyoming. They're both going to be better. Wyoming, a 13.5-point dog here against Colorado. Wyoming is 2-1. Colorado is 1-2. Wyoming, of course, has not played them since 2009. They come off that loss against Utah, but had covered their last 4 and 7 of 8. Colorado losing to Houston, by the way, as a 4-point dog. Who do you like?
It was never really close either, that loss last week at Houston. I know they want to come home and show it. They just don't have what the talent they did last year. That's just facts. And I think there's a chance that Wyoming puts a real scare into them. Give me Wyoming plus 13.5. They might not win, but I think this Colorado team is going to just struggle this year. Coach Prime's got his hands full. Next game, Cal at San Diego State. Cal's look good this year. They're 3-0 in the year. Kind of surprising 3-0, I guess. Total 48.5 at San Diego State here. Cal's a big favorite. What do you like?
Yeah, Cal coming in as a 12-point favorite, total of 48.5 here. Cal's perfect 3-0, of course, being Minnesota, Texas Southern, and Oregon State. San Diego State losing to Washington State 13-36. Man, that loss looks terrible right now. San Diego State, Craig, is not that good this year. You have Cal here who beat them 31-10 as well last time around. I think the only way that San Diego State can even relevantly keep this close is through their defense. I think that Cal has a fantastic defense. I think Cal has much bigger fish to fry. They got Boston College on deck and Duke on deck too. I want to take Cal so bad, but I also think this line is so weak. I would put this more like -16, so I'm a little unsure about it. But I am going to take the under here, because obviously it makes sense here. San Diego State does return 11 defensive starters. That's the only way they're going to keep this game relatively close. And with Cal wanting to pack up and wanting to move on to the other games, which have bigger fish to fry, I'm going to take the under between these two teams. Craig, Michigan State here against USC. Michigan State is a 17-point dog. Michigan State, surprisingly, is 3-0 out of the gates. Of course, they haven't played anybody. Youngstown, Boston College, and Western Michigan. Boston College, I guess, is a decent win. USC here, coming off that nice win against Purdue, 33-17 over Coach Odom's team. These two teams have never played, Craig. Who do you like?
I don't think I've ever seen, or rarely you see a team that's 3-0, 0-3 against the spread. Especially like with their, like you just would think this would be different. And you're getting 17 points. It's a USC team that I'm still not sold on. Coach Riley, I think, at least put a better team together than he's had last year. But 17 points against a Michigan State team that will be physical with them. And I think that's how you have to beat the UCLAs, the Washingtons, the Pac-12, old Pac-12 that are in the Big Ten. You have to play physical with them. I think Michigan State will do that, so I do think they cover, although I do think USC does win the game outright. Next game, I think is going to be a good game, and the line says so. Fresno's favored by 3 at Hawaii. It's a midnight game, total 47.5. What do you like?
Well, Fresno's
last game, by the way. Last game.
Yes. Fresno is 3-0. Obviously, they've covered all 3 games, right? They covered against Southern, Oregon State, and Georgia Southern, to their credit. Hawaii, beat Portland State, but did not cover that 35.5-point line. Hawaii did lose to Arizona, but that's a good loss in my opinion. They beat Sam Houston State as well. Historically, Hawaii beat them 21-20 last year, so Fresno does come in with some revenge. Hawaii, again, did not play well last week. So how does this translate? I like Fresno here, Craig. I think Fresno is a much better team than people realize, coached by Matt Entz. They have a new head coach. Hawaii's coached by Timmy Chang, obviously. But Fresno State returned several defensive starters. Matt Entz is a defensive-minded coach, and Timmy Chang is an offensive-minded coach. I think Fresno State has the defensive mindset to do well, and I'm still to this day impressed by the fact Fresno State, Matt Entz is the real deal, dude. And they haven't beaten anybody yet, Fresno State. This could be a decent win for them. This will be their biggest quality win as well. And, I like Fresno State minus the points here. It's a decent public fade. And I'm going to take Fresno State here. I think they actually surprised a lot of people.
All right, so there's what we have. All the games for college football for week 4. Don't forget, we got the NFL right here. We'll have the NFL for every game for Sunday. Of course, we have all the other days as well. So make sure you check out all of our
YouTube
videos.
Premium, The Edge.
Yeah, hit that. The link is below if you want to get in the YouTube Premium. So if you get in level 3, you'll get all 3 levels. That's $49.99 a month. It's like about a $3,000 value. So make sure you get on that. And it just gives you a little extra insights for both me, Indian Cowboy, and Detroit Lenny. You get all 3 of us. And we do some exclusive content. You get early access to these type of videos. So make sure you get on it. All right, guys, have a great week. Good luck. And we'll see you again next time.